Right. Welcome everybody to the full council meeting, 29 September 2022. This is the last full council meeting of the TRIENNIUM. Welcome to all the elected members, members of the staff, and those online. Council blessing, Councillor Hanford.
Ia mātou e whiriwhiri ana i ngā take kei mua i o mātou aro. I pono ana mātou ka kaha tonu ki te whakapau mahara huapai mo ngā hāpori I mahi nei mātou. Me kaha hoki mātou katoa kia whaihua, kia tōtika tā mātou mahi, mā te maia te tiro whakamua me te hihiri ka taia te arahi I roto I te kotaitanga me te aroha.
Thank you. Item number 3, order of business, apologies. Any apologies? No? Everybody's present? Who do we have online? Councillor Randall. Right.
Can I suggest, Your Worship, that those apologies are read into the microphone so they're on the audio record?
Right. Can you mention this apologies from?
What? That's a big morning. It's a big morning.
Was that a sign?
How did...
Kia ora tata, e kuru, kai mai nere, mātai I rara te tere hui tū mepe, a te taua te kuru rea mātai. E hai ki te mihi atu, a ki te poro pātia, I ako I te poro matua. Nō reira ani rā tō rōwhu, te waka, te tai mai tēnei wā, ki te tukunatu, Nā kōrero pai, nā kōrero nuka hupe, te tūne a koe, te ngari I tēnei wā, ko ngā kōrero pai ka takoto atu ki ruri a koe, te koro matua. I reira, tēnā kōtau, tēnā rā tātou katoa. He wai atu. tuai te taha ia koe a clear te nā kōrua. Ni rā mātou, ka tukuna tira ngā mihi ki rungi a tīmata mihi ki rungi a kōrua. Nō reira tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou.
Seated. And who's looking after the grandson? Thank you so much. As the Queen would say, let's get on with our duty of continuing the work, the mahi that needs to be done.
Mr. Matt.
Oh. Thank you so much. Look what I brought you, flowers.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Janet, for coordination. And you, Jackie, thank you so much. Really, yeah, so sweet of you all. Thank you. Okay, love you.
Oh. I was wondering why there was this song sheet on my desk. And I said, what is this for? He said, oh, mistake. It wasn't. Thank you very much, everybody. Now, Janet, you were saying, yeah, the apologies, can we...
Yeah, just when people are saying the apologies, seeing as they weren't said into the microphone, I think for the public record, it'd be good if they were read out.
Yeah.
The entertainment.
Yeah, so have we got those apologies?
Lateness for the Thanks Hapata and apologies for Kirsten Hapata.
Okay. Item number 4, declaration of interest relating to items on the agenda. None. Item number 5, there's no presentation of petitions. Item number 6, no hearings. Number 7, public speaking time for items relating to the agenda. I understand that Max Lux, welcome.
Well, Your Worship, the Mayor. Your Worship, the Mayor and the Mayoress. She's just ducked out. But councillors, council staff, community board members, I just came here today to thank you for all the support you have given me with the groups that I chair over the last triennium, being the Friends of the Otaki River, the Alumni Trust at Otaki College, and the CLG of PP20. I would really like to thank you all for the wonderful support that we have received within those groups and organisations. And I'd also like to acknowledge Janice Hill for the wonderful work she has done in raising $134,000 from the New Zealand Tourism Fund for the erection of a toilet on the Otaki River Walkway in conjunction with the canoe polo. That is a magnificent achievement, and we certainly thank all the councillors, council staff for their support with Janice and with her fundraising efforts. And for those that are retiring from council this year, I wish you all the very best with your upcoming careers and businesses that you may be taking on. And those that are seeking re-election, I wish you all the very best. And I certainly look forward to working with the council in the next triennium. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Max.
Thank you.
Question time.
That's
No
great.
question. Thank you very much for taking the time.
All the very best. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh. It's become a tradition, eh?
Yeah,
Councillor Buswell.
thank you. Thank you so much, Max, for coming in and sharing your gratitude for what we do for our community. So often it is understated and misrepresented and sometimes taken for granted. So it is really, really nice and really kind and very powerful that someone of your calibre would come and appreciate what we do around the table. So thank you so much for making the time for us today and all the time that you spend in our community, making our community a better place. Thank you.
Very good.
Question mark.
Thank you, Angela. And all the very best, Guru, for whatever, looking after your grandchildren.
I'll see you around town, bro.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members' business item 8, public times responses. No leave of absence. We're not talking about the post-election stuff. No. Item number 8C, matters of an urgent nature. Advice to be provided to the chair prior to the commencement of the meeting. I did have one item that was raised by Martin Holliday in terms of an urgent request to. Can you just basically state what your request is? Just state it very clearly, simple.
Is that working okay? Okay, can I be heard okay? An email was sent by myself and 6 other councillors regards to pausing of the hearing, RMA hearing. This was in response to Claire Holden's letter regards to also requesting the same thing, noting 6 councillors being a majority. I've asked in the email under Appendix 11, page 81 of the standing orders, for this to be brought to the attention of the meeting with regards to a discussion. I appreciate that there has been movement in this. I do have 2 questions that I would like to ask in relation to it. And the request was worded as per the email that I sent. Would you like me to read that out?
That's fine. I'll make a discretionary call on that one. So basically you want that delayed, right?
The 2 questions weren't about delaying. We've actually already been through the scenario of the decision process around this. And at the time, it was noted that there'll be unable to be a motion done with regards to this because of the time frame and even with any regards to any emergency aspects to this. The question I had is in the letter sent by Buddle Finlay.
Wait, look, just
Sorry. I'm not under the impression that I'm able to actually request a decision with regards to this. That's
so
not.
basically you're asking for an urgent urgent matter to be considered, right? On that issue. So let me just make it very clear. I have considered the matter. I've had discussions with both our legal advisor and the chief executive, as the mayor would. I'm using Appendix 6, the powers of the chair, to make this call that we have the process now under the RMA process. We have delegated the matter to a panel of independent commissioners. We are locked into that process. Understand, and you know that the commissioners have already made their decision on this matter. There is where it rests. We are locked into a process, and so there is no urgency in the matter because the matter is now gone into a different section. I clearly understand that the political situation that we are in and the political nature of the pressure that's been applied to councillors and their response to that. But your urgency in terms of your response to political campaigning is not an urgency in terms of the process the council needs to follow. Yeah. And therefore it's my discretionary ruling that I do not consider it urgent, and that's where the matter lies.
Sure. May I make a comment on that?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item number 9, Mayor's report. You all have a copy of that. Can somebody move that to accept the report? So moved. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Vassell. All those in favour say aye. Thank you. We're now on item 10.1, draft annual report and summary annual report for the year ended 30th June 2022. Yes. Joe.
Through the Chair. Morena, tēnā koutou. The annual report 21-22 was considered by the Audit and Risk Subcommittee on the 15th of September, and they recommended it be provided to you today for adoption. This annual report is against the first year of the long-term plan 21-41. It was a pretty tough year, as we all know, with COVID affecting the community, our staff, our ability to deliver some community services. At times throughout the year, COVID-19 affected access to our pools, libraries, road surfacing, footpath renewals, our ability to provide zero waste education in schools, learn to swim lessons and citizen ceremonies. We also experienced a few extreme weather events, activating our Emergency Operations Centre. Despite all of this, though, we continue to progress important work, including, amongst other things, our new growth strategy, housing strategy, district plan changes, the open space strategy to support development in our district. We completed the representation review that resulted in strengthening the voice of mana whenua within our governance structure. The report contains a lot more detail on other achievements and progress. In summary, we ended the year with 68% of performance measures meeting or exceeding target, 75% of major projects on track, most of which are multi-year projects, and 70% resident satisfaction. I'll now hand over to Ian to talk about the finances.
Thanks, Joe, and good morning, everybody. So just very quickly, providing the financial overview, we reported a surplus for the year of 6.9 million. The reason for showing the surplus is largely due to the receipt of capital grants of 9 million. So those are grants that come into the organisation to contribute towards capital projects not available to meet operating expenses. And essentially that's why we reported that surplus. We delivered CapEx for the year of 45.5 million. While that was 28 million below budget, it represented a significant increase over the previous 2 years of 33 million and 22 million respectively in a very difficult delivery environment. We finished the year with $169 million of net debt, and that equated to 176% of operating income, which compares against our financial strategy limit of 280%. And we retained our Standard & Poor's Global AA credit rating. In terms of process, the audit is now substantially complete. The outstanding matters are adoption by council and signing of representation letters. There were no unadjusted audit differences, and the audit report is unqualified. It does, however, contain an emphasis of matter relating to 3 waters. That's similar to last year, and that's a standard inclusion that's required by OAG in all local government reports, noting the uncertainty around the 3 waters reforms and the likely material impact in a couple of years' time. The draft annual report was considered by the Audit and Risk Committee on the 15th of September, and that meeting included a report from our external auditors. And so the report is now recommended to you for adoption.
Right. Question time, Councillor McCann.
Thank you very much. I just wondered if you could highlight what items regarding this report came up at the Audit and Risk Committee and why.
The Air Chathams loan was one that was discussed because that was an outstanding matter at the time. There was, at that point, the 15th, there was a series of outstanding matters, and that was probably the most significant from a financial point of view. And so we were still looking at the impairment of that loan, but had made the decision actually at that meeting, I think, although the draft report that was presented had not been adjusted, we'd made the decision to impair that loan.
And for lay people, what does impair that loan mean?
Provide against it we're required to reflect debtors at fair value, taking into account collectability, and we reviewed financial information in relation to Air Chathams and concluded that it was prudent to impair it, to provide for it, to recognise the risk, I guess, around that loan.
So, through you, Mr Mayor, has this been conveyed to Air Chathams, and has there been a discussion?
Yes.
And is it appropriate to talk about it at this meeting, or is it a part two?
I think as much as I've described and as much as is disclosed is appropriate. I don't think it would be appropriate to go into detailed financial situation, but they're aware of the decision we've taken and they accept that.
Thank you. I have one minor question on page 171, which is the meeting attendance of councillors, and I must say it looks fantastic. As a teacher, I'd be very happy. But I was just wondering, and it's just when the absent column has numbers, there's at least one councillor where it doesn't seem to add up. And I just wondered if page 171, but I'll just leave that with staff to just check the numbers because I think there might be a mistake.
Thank you. We will look into that.
Thank you.
Right. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you very much. Excellent report. My questions relate to page 24. It's a pie chart showing the Three Waters infrastructure value of 384 million. And I did find confirmation on page 131 of the electronic copy that it's 384.4 million value of infrastructure. Oh, is this the figure that future council could use to guide them as to what we should be repaid by the government under the Three Waters Reform Program? Should that all go ahead?
So that, sorry, I can't quite find the page you're referring to.
Okay, it's page 24. There's a little pie chart on the bottom left-hand corner. And I do have a second question after that.
Well, the figure you're talking about is the asset value
Yeah.
of Three Waters assets on our books as at 30 June. And so that will be part of the process with DIA to work out. They have to work through a process which is commenced now to identify the value of the assets, the value of the debt, revenues and expenses, so all of that. But the asset component is 384. It will not equate to the amount of debt that transfers.
Okay.
But you would assume there would be some relationship, but we're still waiting on clarity between for that.
So I'm really interested in getting back a ballpark figure from the CFO. That would be really good. Of what, the asset value and then the debt level and everything, and that calculation.
So that process has just been released by DIA, and we're working through that now in terms of completing their templates. And I think the timelines are for them to conclude those discussions by approximately March next year in terms of what those values will be. So at the moment they're gathering information. Okay. But the asset value 384, that's a solid number.
Yep. Lovely. And my second question just relates to pages 53 through to 59. There's a whole lot of charts, and they are showing the water management performance measures and the wastewater management performance measures for this period covered in this report. Are we to understand that these will be the benchmark figures for performance measures that the council will be using under the Three Waters Reform Program. Given that it's supposed to come in June 2024, I suspect there might be a second report like this coming in just before June 2024.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can provide some information on that. So the DIA performance measures continue up until that point of transition. Te Mata Arawai have another set of performance measures that they are bringing into play. And so, yes, the DIA performance measures will inform that process going forward. As far as, but we're waiting to get a decision, I guess, on when the transition, I'm assuming, between DIA and Te Mata Arawai around performance measures might come to fruition. Yeah.
Okay, because, you know, to be honest, if it was left up to me, I'd be saying, this is how well we did. Can I please have 12 laminated copies for the new incoming council to put on their walls, please, in their offices, just so that they remember that always. Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Councillor Compton.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, in terms of the loans to community organisations on page 123 of papers 113 of the annual report, what is the definition of community organisation that we use that captures a commercial regional airline and the Kapiti Community Recreational Turf Trust under its banner? Because they seem quite different.
No, thank you, Councillor, and this was noted through to us a couple of evenings ago by Councillor Halliday, and I take the point. All that's happened there is we've aggregated the Air Chatham's loan up into that category, and it's described as community organisations. I think your point is probably right that that could be a clearer title, so I'd be suggesting we could alter the label to something like loans to external organisations, for example.
Perfect. That would definitely make more sense, I think. Now, I notice also on there have been repayments, and there's only impairments of $443,000 there. Does that mean we've had some repayments from Air Chatham's, or are we only impairing part of that loan?
Those repayments relate to other loans in that table, so there's been no repayments from Air Chatham's. We did, again, we're required at year end to make adjustments to the value of the Air Chatham's loan based on the present value of the future asset.
So we're amortising it.
Yeah, exactly. So that has been done. That was done last year, being the first year in. So that wrote the value down to about 440 odd, I think, which was the value this year that's actually been impaired. So we've now, in these books, we've now impaired 100%.
Okay. So my final question is, seeing as Air Chatham's themselves have spoken very publicly about how successful they view that the 2 or 3 flights to Auckland a day they're doing, and yet we're on the other hand saying that we've seen financial evidence that suggests that we've got to impair the loan, how do we reconcile those two apparently contradictory statements?
I can't respond to that. I think that'd be a question for Air Chatham's, but suffice to say the financial information that we reviewed indicated it's been a challenging period for airlines generally, including Air Chatham's, and that's what led us to that decision. Presumably they will be thinking about the forward trajectory and what lies ahead.
Cool. Perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Holbrow.
Yeah, I don't have a question. Just one for you, maybe, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering if the Chair of Audit and Risk would like to make any comment, and if so, when.
At the end of this, I will ask him. Thank you. No other questions? Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, I thought it was a very, very good report. We spent quite a lot of time around some of the detail, and on the impairment of the loan, I think it's important to realise that as far as the the company receiving that loan, it's still on their books as a liability. So while we have taken, I think, a very prudent approach, it is still, as far as they're concerned, it is still owing to us. The likelihood of it being repaid was why the decision was made. So it was a big call, but other than that, I think Councillor Compton made a good point about that heading in that report. I think it's a very, very good report, and in a very difficult year, it makes us, I think, feel pretty proud of what has been achieved by you all. So thank you.
We have Councillor Holiday popped up. No? You disappeared again. Well, thank you very much for that. Can I take the opportunity also on behalf of the councillors and staff to thank you for the services that you've offered to us through chairing the Audit and Risk Committee. Thank you very much. I should arrange for some flowers for you too, which you can then give your missus. Right. Recommendation A and B. Will somebody kindly move that?
Sorry, but before you move on, I think we should acknowledge the other Audit and Risk member who's now sitting in a different role at this table, but certainly put a huge amount of effort in alongside Mr. Jackson to that committee. So thank you very much, Mr. Simpson, as well.
Just when you're moving recommendations A and B, B covers some of the changes that were discussed that will be done. Right, who's moving this? Donald Rush. Councillor Buswell moved. Seconded. Councillor Sophie Hanford. Debate?
Can we just note
Right of intro? Right of intro.
I would just like to say thank you very much to the staff that have prepared the annual report, and it's always great to be updated on what we've done. It's a shame that it's often in the past, but it also gives us something to use to look forward. So thank you very much to the staff for their sterling effort, and particularly the Audit and Risk for doing the analysing of it prior to coming to us.
Right, Councillor Holbrook.
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate those thanks, and also I note that our photos now routinely have captions on them, which I'm very happy about, a new instigation this triennium. And I particularly want to thank our finance team for continuing to deliver such incredible positive results. That Standard & Poor's decision was just a huge achievement, particularly in the wake of the previous annual plan, where we made certain financial decisions during the COVID crisis, and to still maintain this financial position is just an incredible achievement. So I really want to extend our thanks for that effort, and also to the Audit and Risk Committee for their input.
Thank you. Councillor Holiday.
There we go. Just echoing the sentiments, and I think what Councillor Buswell said about it's a shame that we, and it just is what it is, it's a shame that we don't get this information until quite further on down the track, because I do think it needs to be acknowledged just how difficult this time period was for everyone concerned, whether it be staff, whether it be councillors, everyone, and whether it be our community as well. And I do take what Councillor Harborough has said, or Deputy Mayor Harborough said as well, with regards to us still being in a good position. We've been prudent with regards to we didn't, with regards to our capital spending. We've done what we can, but we've been prudent in that space as well. We certainly have challenges going forward, but I think we're in a very good place moving forward. And I'm obviously very concerned about all the reform, and that's been a huge impact on this time span as well. Something that I don't think really gets mentioned is just how much staff time gets taken away from their core business by responding to these mandates from central government, which is very unfortunate, because it's the ratepayer that ends up paying for that. But after saying that, the quality of the reports have been fantastic, and the ongoing quarterly reports that have kept us updated have been fantastic as well. And I do appreciate the reports being simplified. And it's a heck of a lot easier to understand. So I do appreciate it, and thank you very much.
Right. Anybody else online? No? Okay, the right of reply, Madam. Okay, recommendation A and B, moved by Councillor Buswell, seconded by Councillor Hanford. All those in favour say aye. Those against? Carried. Thank you so much. The next item is 10.2, reports and recommendations from standing committees and community boards. And we have, who's reporting on this? Thank you. Steffi.
Kia ora koutou. You already know this report. It outlines the reports and recommendations considered by the standing committees and the community boards, and I take it largely as read. But I would like to point out that there are two recommendations. One is the normal one to receive the report, but the other one is that there is a recommendation from the Grants Allocation Subcommittee, the Creative Community Scheme, that was made on the 8th of September. And it has two parts. That the scheme is, it's noted that the scheme is oversubscribed by about $15,000 for medium-sized events, and that it is requested that the council request the chief executive to revisit grant funding to determine the feasibility of having a new fund established for small to medium-sized events. We note that the minutes for that meeting haven't been approved yet, and also haven't been signed by the chair of that committee, but we thought it was important to bring that up before the next grants allocation subcommittee meeting, which will be in the new triennium.
Okay. Any questions, Councillor McCann?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I just note there's an update on the CCTV on council parks and open spaces. And we have had in the community in Paikokariki a 9-year-old boy stopped by a black BMW. I just wonder whether there might be any further update to council on where we are progressing with the CCTV footage issue and installing any cameras and or the privacy issue that was previously debated. I wonder whether that might be helpful for a very short update, if there is one.
Mm-hmm.
Is Mike here? There you go.
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Mr. Chair. In the background, we've been doing a lot of thinking and listening around CCTV, and of course the ram raid at the beach a couple of weeks ago prompted another little kind of spurt of energy in this area. We actually visited Levin Police Station. They have a trust up there that operates, I think, around a dozen CCTV not on behalf of the police, but which the police use extensively. So we have a good understanding of how that works, what some of the holes are in that system, and what some of the risks are. We've also been listening to wider groups within the community, and it's fair to say that this is a highly contentious area on which we need to tread, very carefully, and for which there is not universal agreement that this is the way to go. There are many pros and cons, and we think it's a significant policy decision that needs to be taken by the council. We also think that that we need to make sure that we understand what the operating costs are, because whilst cameras are cheap, the actual monitoring and recovery of the information actually can be quite expensive. We already have about 100 CCTV in places like within our facilities, like our libraries and aquatic centres, and indeed in this building. But those are pretty safe from a privacy perspective, and they're really about staff health and safety. When we start to go wider and talk about public safety, it's actually an increase in service levels, and we think that's a discussion that rightly needs to be had with you, and a policy decision with the council, a policy decision and a level of service discussion that needs to be taken with the council. So we have put a placeholder in for the next triennium, early in the next triennium, to bring that advice to you and to have that discussion.
Right. Councillor Pravanov.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Steffi, for bringing or talking to this item. So I note that that the council is requesting that Chief Executive revisits the granting, but the point is that we're actually not agreeing to that. All we're doing is noting this point. And this is something that has been raised multiple times, and I know that the Mayor was going to look into this, but it is still appears to be sitting on the table. So even though there has been a request made, that's actually not going to move forward based on what this recommendation is. So I suppose my question is, can that be changed so that the council actually agrees to that request if it sees fit?
Jennifer.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Councillor Pravanov, you're right, that has been a point of discussion around this table several times, and as we've previously acknowledged, staff are taking a look at a process by which we could look at having a staff recommendation on the recommendations that come from from committees and community boards. That is what it would take to be able to change the situation to what you're looking for. This is a report from staff. For us to recommend to you as a group that the recommendation from a committee or a board be accepted, we would have to do some work to look at whether or not that is in fact advice that we want to give you, and the way that we work internally is not geared towards that. So we are looking at that, but in the meantime, the appropriate thing for us to do is to continue with the practice that we have commonly had, which is to put the recommendations before you to note, and if there is interest in actually accepting that recommendation, that needs to be moved around the table rather than recommended by staff.
Can I just say, look, I think we have discussed this before, and the question has always been, yes, we note this, but we note it, and then we need to know what the noting will result in any action on the, whether we recommend something, which requires staff report.
It's additional work.
There must be some mechanism by saying action needed on this or not, as an appendix to the process.
Yeah, there is work involved for staff in reviewing the recommendations. Some of the recommendations that come to this table don't necessarily relate to council business as closely as what the recommendation you have on the table for you is today. So in some cases there could be a fair degree of work for staff to do, and the implications of that might be that instead of the recommendations coming to you at the first opportunity following the meeting at which they were passed, there might be more of a delay while staff do the analysis, which is why we need to continue to look at how we would do that in the new triennium, looking at whatever governance structure is in place for the new triennium, and then have a conversation with you about what that would look like.
So, through you, Mr. Mayor, if I can ask Janice another question. So you're noting that work has been done on this, which is great, but so we've got this instance here, but often the community boards put recommendations to council, and I would have thought it was actually the councillors' decision to make, to decide whether or not to agree to a recommendation that they're actually putting forward, because they're all part of the elected member suite, rather than than staff member decision.
I agree, which is why we put them to this table for noting, so that members of the table can make a choice to propose an amendment to that recommendation if they wish. By putting them to this table as for noting, we are leaving space for councillors to decide whether or not that is a recommendation they wish to accept or not.
But having said that, you then come to difficulty whether you need a staff report on that. We can only suggest that we need to do some work on it. It will be useful to the staff from the beginning, when the recommendations comes from the community boards, to sort out whether there's more work to be done on this area or not, rather than leave it to the councillors to make uninformed decisions.
Correct, and that is the process we're looking at for the new triennium.
Okay, so for the purpose of this particular meeting, we can only note.
Thank you, Mr. No, not necessarily. You could choose. You could choose to do something different if it was moved around the table.
So, Mr. Chair, so appreciate clarity on this, and I suppose we've never been told this in the last 3 years. which is disappointing. I suppose the other issue too, if we are actually going to change or make a motion, make a recommendation to agree to this, we have got one sentence. We don't have any background on this. So there's two sides to this. One is that we potentially could agree to this request based on no information, or we note it.
Can I correct the record on something?
Janice.
I would just like to note that I don't agree that this is the first time that you are hearing about this process and why it is approached the way it is, and that there is the opportunity for those around the table to move an amendment. I firmly believe I have communicated that to you in previous conversations where we've talked about this topic, and indeed there are councillors that have moved amendments to motions to bring things forward that staff have put forward for noting as part of their recommendations. And I've been speaking to you about process, but in relation to the specific recommendation that's on the table, I am happy to answer questions about that as well.
Right. Look, can I just say, look, given what's happened, the process-wise, we are now given, particularly on what's before us, on those two recommendations from the grants allocation subcommittee. Are we, as a council, making that as a recommendation to the chief executive or not? Chair of the grants allocation committee. Subcommittee. What's your position? Yeah, you can change that if you want into a direct recommendation to the chief executive, rather than just noting.
Look, I would like to amend that. If it could say the council notes the following recommendations, and requests a report be prepared by staff to come back to the next council, the annual plan process. Is that appropriate? And I also had my button on because I wanted to do a second recommendation.
Just hang on, let's handle this on person. Janice.
Perhaps I can provide some clarification. We've previously committed to doing a piece of work to look at funding for community events that don't fit within the criteria for the Major Events Fund and are also too large to be funded through the Community Grants Program, and have said that we will bring that back as part of the annual plan process.
Lovely.
So I think what the recommendation from the committee is speaking to is a piece of work that is already in train and which the new council will be considering options on as part of the annual plan process.
So it'll be quite safe for us to just note it because work has already been done.
Yeah, thank you. And that was in part, I think, the intention of my committee members and I was to ensure that this conversation happens, and again, noting that a lot of the annual plan discussion is happening in the next 2 months. And I would also like to discuss the oversubscribed by $15,000 for medium-sized events every 6 months, as you're well aware, and I'd like to ask through the annual plan a consideration for an extra $10,000 every 6 months for the community grants allocation to be considered as a budget item in the next annual plan.
Again, is that something that can be done subsequent to us just noting this at the moment?
I don't know if you want to note that request as an additional, or if the fact that I've just said it means that it's in the way. And I do this in support of with the staff working on the actual grants scheme.
We can take
that
on
Mike.
board today.
Okay, Janice.
I think we can take that on board. The purpose of this paper is to report back recommendations from the boards, and I think or the committees, and I think what you've talked about today, councillor, is something that maybe wasn't worded in that way as a recommendation from the committee. So for the purposes of this report, I'm not sure that it's relevant, but we have heard you in terms of your sense of the scale of the problem that would need addressing. and we'll certainly include that in the work we're doing.
Okay, if there are no other questions, Councillor Elliott, would you like to move that particular recommendations A and B? No, that's what I say. That's what I asked. If there are no, would you? Yeah. Right. And my Councillor Holiday.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. This is just more getting a little bit of an update and just some clarification, and it's in relation to the Peka Peka Otaki Expressway, which is on page 248, 5.5, the second point down. And I just wanted to touch base on the Peka Peka interchange. I just wanted to clarify what the position, Council's position is here. And I do that in regards to when the decision was initially made with regards to having a half interchange here, not a full interchange there. We hadn't done any of the intensification or growth predictions, which have really changed the equation. And I do have heard community concerns about what is going to be a very substantial increase in potentially in traffic usage along the back streets, especially around Waikanai, Peka Peka, etc. as well. And so I was just curious, are we having any ongoing conversations with with the PP2O or government or anything like that with regards to the potential of actually getting that interchange in there? What's our position exactly at the moment? I'd like to have some clarity on that.
Sean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have not been having any direct conversations with Waka Kotahi with regard to the proposed intersection. Certainly their position has not changed. There was a resolution moved several months previously where we were instructed to work alongside the community group that are looking to put some further pressure on the government to establish a full interchange there. I can't recall the name of that group, sorry, but there were a number of recommendations, and that was around providing supporting modelling information and some of that growth data. So that's what we're doing at the moment. And the council position, I think, has not changed since, I think there was a letter of support provided by the Mayor possibly last year with regard to, I guess, the community's desire for an interchange there and what that might look like in terms of future growth that the government should consider. So that's currently where it's sitting. The last feedback we had, certainly from Waka Kotahi, that they don't consider that there's any future need for an intersection at full interchange at that site.
Right.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor McCann.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Will staff be in a position to provide options for the incoming mayor, whoever that is, to address the issues of the community boards not feeling like their items in the agenda are being addressed? Is it possible that that advice might be ready?
Absolutely. I anticipate that that'll be an important conversation with the incoming mayor, and any options or process that we try and wrap around it will potentially, be influenced by the different options that exist around the governance structure going forward. So that conversation would be critical, in fact.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Puranov.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm just following up on Councillor Halliday's line of questioning. So as there is, it seems to be very limited interest from various agencies and KCDC to, it seems like there's not going to be a interchange at Peka Peka. So it's my understanding there's going to be an extra 2,100 vehicles going on our local roads when the expressway opens to Otaki. I'm already aware, and Mr. Mellon is also aware of a lot of complaints coming from residents in Te Moana Road about the number of vehicles, the size of the vehicles. What is KCDC going to do about the increase in traffic that will be occurring as a result of the expressway opening between Peka Peka and Otaki, particularly in the Waikanai area, Te Horo area?
Mr. Mellon. Do you need
Yeah, if you're offering. Sorry, Mr. Chair. So we're aware of those modelled numbers in terms of traffic increases through that area. We're not currently proposing to do anything in that space with regard to the volume that's been suggested as well within the capability of both Te Maina Road in terms of, I guess, its operational performance, and whether that has an impact in terms of, I think one of the issues that's been raised is noise, I think was one that was raised most recently. So at the moment, we don't have any plans to do anything outside of any general maintenance, upgrades or renewals with Te Maina Road.
Right.
A follow-up, just in terms of, so you're saying that all the roads have got capacity to deal with those, but that is actually going to change the lifestyles and have impacts on those people in those feeder roads. So is it the council's view that that's acceptable?
That would potentially be a question for the new council in terms of levels of service, and a conversation that might need to happen as part of the next LTP associated with both KPIs and levels of service associated with the transport area.
Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. No other questions, Councillor? Oh, she's left. Anybody wants to move recommendations A and B?
I'm happy to move those.
Can I have a seconder? Councillor Henford.
I'd also like to maybe move an additional one, that the council notes that work is progressing to establish a medium-sized event through the annual plan process. Community events? Community events. Work is progressing to establish a fund for community events through the annual plan process. So after the word fund and process. So and process. And then another one, that the council notes a request from the chair of the grants committee for the council to consider additional funding for the Creative Communities scheme. Through the annual plan process. I don't think there should be a problem with any of those motions because they're all only noting. It's just to get it on the record, some of what our discussion was today.
Right, the seconder okay with that? Councillor Elliott, sorry, we moved while you were away.
Is that okay?
Now, has amended the recommendation. We'll do just the recommendation A, then we'll move to B.
I think we should be all right moving them all at once.
Okay. So has amended and including B.
So I've got right of introduction.
Right on introduction, Councillor Holbrook.
Yeah, this recommendation came from the committee because of, as the chair said, an ongoing situation where this scheme is heavily oversubscribed, and also the limitations of this great scheme to adequately fund those medium-sized events, because it generally only kind of goes up to around $2,000, except, you know, in more exceptional circumstances, which isn't enough for a community event. So it's not just about the fact that this is oversubscribed, but also it's beyond the limits of this scheme to adequately support those events so that they're run in an adequately safe and successful manner. So just really to provide additional kind of support around this scheme, this new scheme, as it progresses through the annual plan process, and some extra reasoning around why we'll need it for the new council. So it's my pleasure to bring this to the table. Around the issue of noting versus recommending, it's going to be a difficult discussion for the new council, because quite often we'll get recommendations from community boards that aren't identified through our annual or long-term plans and require additional staff resource and additional budgets. So, and to make those kind of decisions without adequate background information as to the impact on the finances in the organisation is difficult. So I understand the difficulty with staff in progressing this work, but certainly also understand the frustration of community boards when they bring something to the table which is really important to their community, needs to be progressed maybe ahead of an annual plan process, and doesn't get any further than this report. So it's definitely some work that needs to be done with the new chief executive and with the new councils and community boards, how this kind of thing is dealt with. So yeah, so good luck to whoever's doing that work. It's not an easy piece of work, but certainly one that needs to be done.
Right, open for debate. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you so much. Good words. I just need to firstly just flag a wee wording amendment to the third sentence from the bottom, right at the far right end. Establish a fund and process for, and just repeating, medium-sized community events again.
I think it's been moved and seconded already. I'll find it difficult to...
Okay, it was all right. I just had a wee bird talk on my shoulder.
But you can still debate the matter.
Okay. Other than that, I would like to add to Councillor Holborough's words, thank you and Sophie for moving and seconding this recommendation, and also just note that the fact that we need to come for more funding for this grants round simply reflects the wonderful expansion of our creative communities activity in the district, and you know, and much thanks to the staff who go out and help facilitate and help these artists to come to with their applications, and also other, you know, organisations that are out there really focused on improving the scope of activities available and events. So thank you all.
Right. Anybody else? Councillor Pravanov.
Just an admin issue, Mr. Mayor. For those of us who are some distance from the screen, it is very difficult to read it. I'd rather be...
What's the solution?
So I suppose... So it's a case of where... if we have a system, this is probably more for the new TRIENNIUM in terms of having a screen that everyone can read without squinting, particularly for new recommendations.
Particularly for the senior candidates.
There's nothing wrong with my glasses. It's more a case of...
Specsavers. This is a Specsavers advertisement. Yeah, do. Hold on, hang on a moment. 2020, please.
I'm glad that we were able to improve that immediately. Some of our other technology challenges are not necessarily subject to the opportunity for immediate improvement in the same way that was.
That's a statement on the local government sector.
But Steffi and her team are working with you and his team on technology, including how we can better navigate a world where we have a need to have minutes and recommendations on screens, Zoom on screens, the ability for staff to not only control that but do their minutes, and there's a lot of different screens and a lot of different things to see on them. So I take your point about your frustration, and we are looking at options for the new TRIENNIUM. I can't guarantee that it will be either easy or cheap, unfortunately.
So, Councillor Brown, you've taken your glasses off. Is it right now? Right, Councillor McCann.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. And I note that while the words have got better, Bernie, Councillor Randall has actually shrunk. Sorry, Bernie. You're minute now. But more seriously, there are two different issues here. One, I'm really pleased to see that we are making some progress around community events, or as they could also be called, medium-sized events. It's something the full council has reiterated on many occasions is something lacking, and that is absolutely required because it doesn't fit into our major events. It's not about money, it's about binding our community together and providing opportunities for the community to link with one another, experience new things, and enjoy the Kapiti Coast. The second issue is also one that has been reiterated and bubbling for the last 3 years that I've been here, and that is how we value and move forward with the work of our community boards. So it's really pleasing to see that even though it is our final meeting, we have a way forward, which will obviously be through the new council, to make sure that the issues that the community boards raised are acted on and not just noted. And we hear what the staff are saying, that there are issues with process there, and whoever the new mayor is, I hope that is a high priority to ensure that they are funneling information into our committee that we then act on and make decisions, whether it means we agree with them or disagree with them, but more than just noting. So thank you very much for those extra words on the screen.
Councillor Holliday.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I certainly agree with everything that Rob just said there, or Councillor McCann just said there as well. I just want to add it in as well, is that we've got a substantial size fund for the large events fund, and potentially it could be a repurposing of funds, because I am aware that money's got to come from somewhere. But I did want to acknowledge Council's fundraising position that was created in Council, and the funds that have come to the community via that, and that could also potentially be a vehicle with regards to addressing the situation as well. But that was me. Thank you.
Right. Nobody else?
Mr. Mayor, I was a bit late, but can I
Are
speak,
you?
please?
No, you can't.
Oh, well, I'm going to.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Thank you very much for that. But it's just that, are you looking at the criteria as well? Because some grants have come to the community board that haven't, for medium-sized events, that haven't quite fit the criteria for this grant. So I'm just flagging that, and because I felt a couple actually should have got past the post with these creative grants.
So Creative New Zealand sets the criteria for that specific grants program, but in relation to community events more broadly, I think you've heard previously that my colleague Mr. Mendonca and I will need to have staff from both of our teams looking at this, and a part of that process is not just looking at I guess the current situation with what appears to be a gap in funding, but to look at what the any criteria might be around any new funding that is established. So yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Hanford.
Yeah, sorry, also a latecomer, but just wanted to kind of add my thanks as well for the clarity that's being given to the work that's progressing in this space that we know has been raised multiple times, and we're very appreciative of the fact that there's kind of agility around the need to respond to what is a very good problem to have, that there are lots of very keen people in our community organising amazing events and bringing, as Councillor Elliott said, bringing that real vibe to our coast. And I also just want to acknowledge the work of the various committees and boards that have met over this period, and specifically the Youth Council. I found it, incredible going along to their meetings and the energy and kind of depth and breadth of the work that they're doing, and the real passion that they have for contributing to the work of council. And so I hope that into the next TRIENNIUM that whoever's on the council continues to strengthen, specifically that relationship that's very dear to my heart. So I just wanted to acknowledge them and acknowledge too the kind of change that they're going through as a group, and just really respect and appreciate the members of the Youth Council.
Right, Councillor Holbrook, right of reply, I suppose.
Yeah, just a couple more little points while we've got the opportunity to comment on and celebrate the Creative Communities scheme. And I just wanted to identify the wider benefits of the arts that we fund through this scheme. It's not just about nurturing artistic creativity, but it's also about the social well-being outcomes that come alongside. There's a hip-hop group, workshop group particularly springs to mind that's happening in Otaki to support particularly at-risk youth there. I'm thinking of Te Ara Korowai, and the incredible work they do supporting vulnerable people in our community, and all the other many organisations who support groups with particular vulnerabilities throughout the community through the arts. It's just something that I think that is particularly strong in Kapiti, and which this fund is crucial to support.
Right, thank you. Recommendation A has amended, and recommendation B has this. Moved by Councillor Holbrook and seconded by Councillor Hanford. All those in favour say aye. Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. What, already? 5-minute break.